All right, welcome to the North Georgia Advocate podcast number 13. I'm here, Chris Dyer with Viral, and our special guest, Korey Anderson, who is running for District 1 County Commissioner. And we're going to dig into a lot of stuff tonight, and because we got a lot to talk about, and Korey's got a lot of ideas, and they're very innovative, some of them. You know, he's not looking just to point out the problems we have, because we all know what the problems are. He's coming up with solutions. Korey, introduce yourself and tell us how you wanted to get involved in all this.
All right. Well, no, thanks for having me. I'm Korey Anderson, running for Hall County District 1 Commission, and been a lifelong resident of Hall County, born and raised here. Kind of, a little background. My family has been in Hall County since the early 1800s. So we're about 200 years into living here. So this is home. This is where we put our roots down, and we are born, live, and die here. You don't find that often anymore. A lot of people, move away, but our family this has been home. I'm a product of the Hall County school system. So I went to Chestnut Mountain Elementary, South Hall Middle School, and graduated from Johnson High School. And so I enjoyed my education with Hall County. Enjoyed, being raised and growing up here. My parents, still live in the area. My sister, she lives in the area with her kids and husband, and I'm the oldest. And I'm married, got 2 kids. I tell people, I keep them out of politics, the kids. I just don't really think that's a place for young kids. I got young kids, and it's not, to me, politics is not a place for young kids. The public, society as a whole, is politics can be cruel, and I'm just not going to subject that to them. So I shelter them from that. They know I'm running, but they're really not, and they're not involved.
No, they shouldn't be, in my opinion. That's a smart decision, in my opinion. Now, when they get older and choose to help, that's one thing.
Right. So, but I don't pander them in videos and marketing and stuff like that. That's just not me. But yeah, my wife Lindsay, we're local business owners. I was in real estate for a license in January 4th of 2012. Coming out of the recession, it was tough. You learn to make $1 in a recession. You can learn to make $1 in anything, I guess. My wife, she's a dentist, started her dental practice in 2013. Again, coming out of a recession, we started a private practice, and we're still thriving today, 13 years later. And that's where I work full time. I like to clear the area. I know, real estate agents / realtors get a bad rap in politics. But I'm not active in real estate. I can't transact in real estate. My license is in a holding company. And for the last 2 years, I've been working full time at the dental office. And for me, you're talking about getting into politics. I've always kind of been around it. My family's been very active civically, I guess, my whole life. And, friends with some local politicians, Emory Donahue, Jerry Jackson, Derek McCullum. I guess knew most of them before they got into politics. Casey Cagle. I guess the list goes on. James Mills. And for me, so they've been around that my whole life. And we've always volunteered civically, giving back to the community. I was telling Chris earlier today, we volunteered with the homeless community probably close to 20 years ago now. We've given our time and money and resources to places like my sister's place, the Center for Hope and Healing. We were foster parents. So our hearts are, in my opinion, for our community and giving back where we can. We still do that through dentistry. We give back through the dental office to our community. And so for me, I enjoy giving back to my community and trying to improve where we live and the county we live in. I saw the train coming down the tracks, politically speaking, and with the overdevelopment of District 1, probably about 6 years ago. and realized we had some serious problems. And so I wanted to run the last election cycle, which would have been 2022, right? And my wife was basically, please don't do that to us right now. We got small kids. We had just got done with kind of our foster care. Our boys went back to their bio parents, and we closed our home. And again, we're both small business owners. She's like, "Why would you do that to us? That's a lot." And I agree, and I respected that. And so I didn't run the last election cycle, and just for District 1 Commission, and our current commissioner ran unopposed. And to me, that's one of the biggest travesties in our democracy is the voters not having a choice. When all you've got is the incumbent, and that's your only choice, I feel like that erodes the basic concept of voting and who you're choosing to be your public, elected official. And just on the local level, I mean, I think it starts there. And that's a whole nother discussion of local versus state and federal politics. So I didn't run. She ran unopposed. Obviously, just sailed right in and back to this, just business as usual. So I made a commitment then that she would never run unopposed. Kathy Cooper would never run unopposed. And so coming up on the next election cycle, I've again been active in stuff going on at the government building, commission meetings for almost the last 2 years, and knew I was going to run against her. This just wasn't an option for me. So back in July, I announced my intent to run, and most people are not involved in politics. I mean, you've seen that, or even kind of what's going on in our local government. So we had an election in November. So a lot of people were confused thinking that the election was November, because that's just, when we have elections. But then I'm like, no, it's the next year. Oh, and so for a lot of people, it's still not on the radar. We're less than 60 days away to the primary. And a lot of people still don't know that May 19th is our primary. They don't know who they're going to vote for. And that's okay. And some people don't understand the process. Why there's so many candidates for governor. Thought we only elected one. That's correct. We only elect one. The primary. So I've enjoyed that aspect of it too, is kind of the education standpoint. I guess if I back up a little bit, when I first graduated high school and went to college, I was an early childhood major because I wanted to be a school teacher. And was did after school at Martin Elementary, was after school care, and then realized real quick that a lot of a teacher's job was not teaching kids. It was meetings and dealing with parents. And I wanted to teach. I didn't want to, deal with parents and be in meetings all the time. And one of the teachers pulled me to the side and was like, "This is how it is. Like, if you want to be a teacher, you're going to have to deal with this." I'm like, I don't want to do that. So I still enjoy education. I have a 4-year degree in marketing from Augusta. It was Augusta State when I was there, but now it's I think University of Augusta. They changed the name. And so I have a degree in marketing from there, and I have a minor in criminal justice because I also thought I wanted to be a cop. And if you could just go do the job, I think it's amazing. But again, there's all the other stuff that goes with law enforcement, with the politics and playing the game, and that just wasn't for me either. So, but I love the education standpoint. So being able to talk to citizens, constituents, voters, what do you want to call them, and just helping them understand the process, how our local government works. I had some wonderful teachers at South Hall and Johnson with like Georgia history with Karen Ellis and Martha Montgomery in my government and social studies classes, Penny Ellis, Jenny Sue Vaughn, Pam Smith. They're still, I've been out of school 26 years and I still remember their names like I was in their class yesterday. And what's funny is I was telling my wife the other day, they were all women. And, I never really made that correlation, but these women were very impactful in my life and made sure we understood the role we play in our local government, state government, federal government. Exercise your right to vote. If you don't vote, then you don't have a reason to complain because you could have been a part of the solution, but you chose not to. So vote, understand how economics works, understand how your government works. how many U.S. senators do we have? Most people don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, they don't.
It's 100. It's just always 100. There's 2 per state. So they instilled that knowledge and desire to understand and be an educated citizen for me. So I give them a lot of credit for I guess what I'm doing today and my passion for local government, understanding how it works, and that we the people really does mean something still. I think we've lost that a little bit as a whole, but when you get down to it and the basis of it, we the people, I mean, that's it. And I tell people all the time, at 2875 Brownsbridge Road, where our government building is, that building is we the people. It is not some person's building. It is our building. It is our property. It is ours. This is our county. So it's there for us. The only reason it exists is because we pay taxes. And I think people forget that.
Yeah, people forget that the government couldn't exist without taking our tax money.
Right.
Do we own that?
No,
I thought we saw that the building was owned by a separate LLC that rents the building to Hall County.
So, yeah, you want to chase that rabbit for a minute?
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think Tyler had covered it at one point. I think we had discussed this, or even I think it was in the group, in the Concerned Citizens group, as who owns it, why do we pay rent for it, and the county bought it, turned around and sold it to somebody else for a small profit or a decent profit, and now we pay upwards of hundreds of thousands of dollars or something like that a year to rent it.
Yeah, so back in probably around August, I was talking to a patient voter at the office. We were talking, and I was just kind of sharing. I like to stay positive. I think I'm a pretty positive person. I don't like a lot of negativity. I don't hang around a bunch of negative people. I was like, but that's been a hard concept for me running for office, is that it's always about what the county is doing wrong, right? Everything is what they're not doing this right. They did this. This is shady. This feels weird. Why are we doing it this way? What good is the county doing? And sometimes it's really hard to find something that the county's doing well. And
other than spend money.
Right. One of the things the county's doing well, and I give credit where credit's due, is the campgrounds on the lake that were being managed by the Corps of Engineers. Pretty sure it was Greg Poole and David Gibbs were instrumental in getting that basically handed over to the county, let the county manage it, open the parks. And it was during I think the government shutdown last year.
Right.
Well, that actually makes the county money. Like, it pays for all the staff, all the maintenance, and we have money left over. Like, it's a profitable
endeavor.
Yeah. And I'm like, we can operate like a business, and we should operate more like a business. And I've joked around too that, if they were a true business, they couldn't even afford to leave the parking lot every morning. But they just get an endless supply of money through our tax dollars. So, but to say all that, I was talking to a guy and I said, one of the things they did great was they bought I call it the Liberty Mutual building. If you've been here long enough, you remember it was Liberty Mutual. And I said, they bought it during the recession. They got a good deal on it. I think I couldn't remember my numbers. I was like, I think they paid like $6.4 million.
Steve Gailey negotiated a deal for $7.2 million, but they only ended up paying $5.1 for it because Liberty Mutual rented it back from the county for 2 years.
Right.
So they ended up technically paying like $5.1 or $2 million.
Yep. And so that was a good deal. I was like, man, that was a great thing. We consolidated all of our departments into one building, one rooftop. The building was already there. There's no way we could buy that land, replicate that building for that kind of money. It was a good deal.
Oh,
and so I said, but let me look at the numbers just to make sure I'm not speaking out of my rear end. So I looked, and when I looked it up, again, I got a real estate license. I started looking up through, and I'm a member, or I subscribe to the Georgia Superior Clerk of Courts website, where I can look up deeds and plats and liens and stuff like that. Basically, just do a title search. But I looked it up and realized it didn't show ownership as Hall County government. I was like, well, that's weird. And it was in an LLC. And I was like, why is it in an LLC? Like, we own that building. So I looked up that LLC to see other properties it owned, and that LLC was holding the North Hall Community Center and the land behind it on Nopone Road, the government building, and then the Department of Labor building on Atlanta Highway. And I was like, well, maybe that's just normal. And it was a weird acronym. Not I say weird, but basically it stood for the Gainesville Hall County Development Authority. But it was an LLC, and the LLC is registered with the Secretary of State. And I was like, well, the Development Authority is a government entity that is allowed to exist by municipal code, so it's technically a government entity. So they don't have to be an LLC. They're not registered with the Secretary of State. None of our government entities are registered with the Secretary of State. But this LLC was, and it's holding our government building, North Hall Community Center, and the land behind it. So I started digging a little more, and I was like, well, maybe the Development Authority does this. Let me look at other government properties. I looked at all the fire stations, Hall County government, libraries, Hall County government, the jail, Hall County government, courthouse, Hall County government, sewer pump stations, Hall County government. But our government building was in
Korey, what was the name of the LLC?
GHCDA LLC.
So I'm thinking Greater Hall County Economic Development Corporation.
Well, Development Authority, yeah. LLC.
Authority, yeah.
So turns out that, to me, it's shady because it's not transparent. It's not crystal clear. So obviously it's muddy. It's shady. Why do we have an LLC? Well, the story I got was that the LLC, well, here's the other thing. They bought the government building with SPLOST dollars, which they can. It's a capital improvement, capital building, capital expenditure. They bought it with SPLOST dollars. 30 days later, sold it to the LLC for about, I think it's $2.7 million more than what the county paid for it. Well, okay.
How long in between?
30 days.
Wow. So they didn't even wait almost a whole month.
Well, state law is when you use SPLOST dollars, you got to wait 2 years before you can sell it.
Okay.
So that's state law. So once you use SPLOST dollars to buy, say, land, say if the county bought 200 acres of land with SPLOST dollars, they have to hold it for 2 years before they can sell it. So they can't just get in the flipping business. They can't compete with private investors' development. That's not the goal of SPLOST dollars in our government. So they have to hold on to it for 2 years. But they sold it in 30 days. Well, the profit was about $2.7 million, and I still haven't got an accurate accounting of where the $2.7 million go.
And who did you ask for accounting records, or did you file an open records request?
County administration.
Okay.
Basically, I was told that the 2010 budget / balance sheet / profit and loss statement is in like an old server and basically almost impossible to get, and it would be several hours and days worth of ORR, blah 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 blah, whatever. So, we'll get to the bottom of that eventually. Still, to this day, nobody can tell you where the money went. Well, the story I got was this LLC. Basically, the property's transferred to the LLC. The LLC borrows money through like a local bank. This happened to be Regions, and they would get the loan to basically service or to service the debt that they bought the building for, then the remodel. So that way it's not on the county, quote unquote, I guess, for whatever reason, to not be responsible for the whole remodel of the building to convert it to our government building. So once that happened, though, the county is paying the development, this LLC, $500,000 a month for 5 years.
$500,000 a month
for 5 years.
Wow.
That's just crazy. See, and I've talked to a couple of other old commissioners. They didn't even know that it was sold to the LLC. This was all done off the books.
So you're saying we, as taxpayers, we were at some point paying $500,000 a month
to lease that building.
5 years, which is $6 million. That's $30 million over 5 years that we paid potentially to this.
That's
LLC.
every bit of money you got for selling the thing.
Yeah, well, that's a great investment on return. I want to buy something like that. That's
right?
Me.
Yeah. So, And so in 2015, we satisfied that debt. I just have a hard time believing that it was that somebody didn't make money. Like, where did the money go? Right? Because if we're giving $6 million a year to this LLC over 5 years, like you said, it's $30 million. Was the building really, $8.4 million and then, $21.6 million to refurbish, like to remodel it? No.
Korey, so I know when I heard about this, there were some names that were dropped as to who was linked to that LLC. Do you mind sharing that?
Yeah, no, it's all on the deed. It's all open record. So when the property was sold, the sole signer on the transfer was the county commission chair at the time, Tom Oliver. So he was the signer. Apparently there's some whole backstory about that, whatever, blah blah blah. So
wasn't Tom Oliver also involved in a bunch of other shady / questionable dealings, Chris? Back when he was the commissioner?
Yeah.
Okay. Keep going, Korey.
So the LLC, the members of the LLC were Tread Siphon, God, what's his name?
Tread Siphon is one of the attorneys at Siphon and
he's an attorney at Stewart, Melvin and Frost.
Stewart, Melvin and Frost, and then, but don't they represent Hall County?
At times, yes. Right. So interesting, right? So then you have William Bagwell, another attorney, and then Tim Evans was the president of the Chamber of Commerce. So they were on the LLC.
Tim Evans?
Yep, Tim Evans. So I made a phone call to Tim and asked him about the LLC, and he's like, I don't have no idea what you're talking about. Well, the backstory is that the building was paid off in 5 years. So at 2015, the building was paid off. Well, immediately that deed should have transferred back to the county. So if it's truly a debt structure to, shield the county from liability, blah, blah, whatever it is, within 5 years, the debt was satisfied, and then the title should have been transferred back to the county in 2015. So 2025, 10 years later, it's still in that LLC's name, along with the North Hall Community Center. And and I still haven't gotten a straight answer because no one knows. Maybe the $30 million serviced the debt for the North Hall Community Center to be built, but nobody can tell you. And I don't know why. Like, why do you not know this? And then with SPLOST dollars used, because I think there's somewhere in there that, SPLOST dollars built the North Hall Community Center. So what's the truth? And nobody seems to want to answer it, and everyone wants to skate around it.
So I think if you guys had maybe brought this up, because I'm looking at the tax records right now, and it does say Hall County on it.
Yep.
But to your point, October 24, 2025 is when it got transferred.
Right.
That's correct.
So maybe some light being shined upon this little.
So basically we gave them an ultimatum. You got 30 days to fix it. And on like day 29, it was fixed.
Okay.
Because I did a couple of weeks of just digging. Like I want to not just jump to conclusions, right? We got a lot of people in our community like to jump to conclusions. I want to stay like accurate, relevant, fact-based. What's going on here?
Sure.
So,
sure.
For 10 years, that LLC's been holding our government building. Well, it also appears that possibly, and I don't have concrete evidence, but I have suspicions that they're using that property as leveraging portfolios. So they're showing up.
So to that, and I wanted to bring this up too. So back in 2010, in September 2010, there's a mortgage history on it.
Yep, from Regions, right?
15.3 something million. Doesn't say which bank or anything like that, but it just says other institutional lenders. So there's some validity to what Korey's saying as far as it possibly being leveraged in a portfolio, because they took out $15.3 million against it from the looks of it for 5 years.
Yep.
So yeah,
I got my folder somewhere around.
Very interesting.
Yeah, so
it's a great business to be in, guys.
So end up getting it transferred back. The North Hall Community Center, No Pone Road, and the government building transferred back to the ownership of the citizens because that's where it belongs. It's our tax dollars.
Now, isn't there already a development authority out there that's government ran? Is not the LLC?
there is, right? So it's like this shadow.
Well, it's confusing. They did it to confuse people.
That's what it appears. But yeah, the development authority still exists. That's a whole nother can of worms when you start diving down the development authority, the Lanier Development Authority, or Lake Lanier Development Authority, the Chamber of Commerce, the Unified Development Code Steering Committee. I mean, you start seeing all these same names just pop up throughout all of this. Everybody's got their hand in the cookie jar, and it's all being funded, it seems like, by the taxpayers of Hall County. You're starting to see more Georgia counties, and maybe it's across the state, but I've just been following Georgia, where basically they're dissolving their development authorities.
Right.
Well,
You bring up Trad Siphon, and I'm not picking on him. It's just he seems those sweetheart deals they just gave Kubota and Kings Hawaiian and Oakwood, where they gave them those deferred, where they don't have to pay. They put their land in some kind of a legal trust, where they didn't have to pay taxes on it for so many years. And
yeah, they'll put them in, tax abatements for pilots, payment in lieu of taxes. So
yeah, payment in lieu of tax. Yeah, the pilot.
Pilot programs. And
is it kind of like what? Is it kind of like what you were talking about? Like you just give them access to your property as far as like let them leverage it in a portfolio, and then you don't have to pay taxes on it. Is that kind of what they're doing?
So with a pilot, the payment in lieu of taxes is essentially what they'll do is that the development authority will basically, I guess, fund the whole project, for lack of a better word. So they, the development authority, like the old Hall County landfill, if you look it up, I believe it's under the power of the development authority to develop.
Sure.
And so they've got, the development authority is a mixture of Gainesville City members and also Hall County members. So I believe Hall County appoints the chair of the development authority. As when I say Hall County, like the chairman, the commissioners appoint the chairman, and then the city appoints the vice chair.
Right.
And a lot of times, I guess we'll say it makes sense, but anytime we have a board like that, there's somebody from at least one, power company. Jackson EMC or Georgia Power is going to be on there. There's going to be an appointment from the Chamber of Commerce is going to be on there. There's ex officio members. There's a lot of rules. Municipal code puts a lot of rules around the development authority of what they can and can't do. And it seems like, are we following those to the T? Or are we just kind of doing what we want? Because, the development authority is supposed to also, they have public meetings where the public's invited, and they also keep minutes for those meetings. I've never seen one advertised.
I haven't either.
And so it's just like any other government entity. They have to obey the sunshine laws and post their meeting times and where they're going to meet and record the minutes and everything. And then who do you go to get the meetings minutes?
Right.
You have to go to them, and and of course they're all choir boys who are not, don't look at us. We're just everything we do is on the up and up. So but yeah, so the government building got it transferred back to where it shows ownership as Hall County government, as it should have been 10 years ago. Yeah. And it feels like, oh, whoopsie, it was just an oversight. We'll get that fixed.
You got $100 million in land sitting there, and it's not an oversight. I mean, come on.
Well, and two, there's a new courthouse is on our next SPLOST agenda.
Right.
And with the our courthouse, it has to be within the county seat, right? State law dictates that our courthouse has to be within the Gainesville city limits. Well, our government building is also within the Gainesville city limits. And David Gibbs, his proposal is we'll put the courthouse at Brownsbridge Road. We'll have everybody on one property. We won't need to have, people all over, say, I say all over the county, but, in different buildings all over the city to try to, have court services. We'll put it all in, we got 39 acres there.
Exactly.
We put stuff there. Save a bunch of money on real estate. Well, it's hard to do when you don't own the building and the land.
Yeah.
Right? That LLC owns it. technically, that's what it was showing, especially on the deed. We didn't have a deed transfer. And so some of that makes me think that they definitely don't want the courthouse at Brownsbridge Road because we already own the real estate. So where else is it going to go? Well, everybody keeps saying, well, it needs to go around the square. It needs to go downtown. That's the worst place to put a courthouse.
Yeah.
Like, our current courthouse is only 26 years old, maybe.
Yeah. 26 years old.
And we've already quote unquote outgrown it. And I spoke at one of the SPLOS meetings of, okay, we built a new courthouse that was the, end all be all. And, what was it? If you look back, it was some company out of Canada that builds schools that built our courthouse because they were the lowest bid.
Yeah.
And here we are, we've outgrown it and we don't have any space and we need a new one. And in my opinion, realistically, a new courthouse is going to be probably $500 million to build what they need to build. I think their number was like 250 or 300, but I was talking to somebody and I'm like, why don't y'all just be honest? It's going to be $500 million to build a new courthouse. And their words were to me, and I'm not going to say who it was, is that when we said that, we were laughed out of the room. So we had to come up with a number that was more appealing to the community. I said, well, a lie is not appealing to the community. Coming back for the, nickel and dime the county to death is not appealing, or the citizens. So just say it's $500 million and build something that'll last 50 years.
Right.
And I brought up the fact, I said, you travel around Georgia and you'll go to some of these counties and these rural counties and they've had the same courthouse for 100 years.
Yeah.
Why can't we build that? One of the judges was at the meeting. He stood up and kind of wanted to challenge me a little bit, which is fine. He said, well, what you don't realize is that, those counties they've not grown. They're still the way they were 50 years ago. So their courthouse still works for them. I said, oh, so if we control our population, we can control how much we have to spend on our courthouse. That's what you're saying. You're saying population is driving a courthouse. So if we can control our population and our growth, then we don't need a $500 million courthouse. And he sat down. He didn't really want to talk after that.
Right.
Because that's where it's coming from. We've invited, and I said that in that meeting too, you have a room full of people here that don't use the courthouse. We're not using the courthouse. The reason you need a bigger courthouse is not because of probate, not because of the deed room. It's the criminal element. None of us in here that you're trying to peddle this thing to are using the courthouse. You invited this into our county and you got criminal cases backed up out of courtroom space. And I can't remember the number. Excuse me. But when you bring a new judge in, it's not just the judge, right? It is. What did somebody tell me? Every judge is like 40 new positions, I think.
Yeah.
It's not just the judge. It's a whole mess.
He's got a whole team of lawyers. He's got a whole staff. He's got.
Yeah. I mean, you got auxiliary staff. You got, it's just, and that's great. I mean, it creates jobs or whatever. But we've grown to a point where we talk about infrastructure and we can talk about that, but the courthouse we'll throw it under the infrastructure umbrella. We can't maintain what we have.
Right.
The caseload, the building itself, that building's problematic, which, it gets used a lot, right? It's kind of like the jail. The jail's operational 24/7. So stuff's going to break, stuff's going to be fixed. But are we really putting ourselves in a position for longevity and being a responsible steward of our resources? And I told him, I said, the courthouse you're presenting, if it only lasts another 25 years, you're creating a problem for my kids.
Oh yeah. And
right.
The thing is, they're not even doing night court. They're not. And most of this magistrate court, they could use any building because most of those cases are settled. You don't have to have a whole courtroom for most magistrate court and some state court.
Right.
And as big as those courtrooms are, you could really split them in half.
Well, you don't have to have those courtrooms, but we
want this courthouse.
We love some square footage, don't we?
Yeah, that's the most wasted space. That courthouse has got so much wasted space on it, and you bring And you bring
It's,
that
it's
dump
currently
table
going
up
under
and-
renovations though, so I don't understand why are we renovating this if we're potentially proposing a new, why did money get
Oh.
approved for renovations in this courthouse if you guys are going to try to throw $500 million towards
Well,
a new
we can talk about the government building too. They're going on a remodel on the third floor,
third floor? Yeah, I saw that.
and then, if you think about it, in 2010 we did a full remodel. Then I get it, stuff has to be updated, but I think the third floor is a $3 or $4 million renovation right now.
Yeah, no, it's outrageous the stuff that they were
What
paying.
what exactly is getting renovated on the third floor? Because it seems okay to me. Like everything I've seen. Are we just trying to compete with Forsyth County now at this point with their $100+ trillion administration building that they can't even use right now because it's not in the city of Cumming?
Yeah. And that's a pissing contest there because the city of Cumming won't let them annex.
Maybe you guys should have worked that out.
Yeah.
Like, who does that after the fact? Unfortunately, we own land in Forsyth County, so we're paying for that building.
Right.
But it's a little bit on par with government lately on every level in our country.
When you were out of the country, one of the meetings, some lady brought up some of the renovation outlandish stuff. If I'm remembering off the top of my head, they were paying like $250,000 for new tables and chairs for the third level. This is how.
Oh, for the third floor.
Yeah, for the third floor.
Oh, wow.
They're replacing getting new tables and chairs and doing. The stuff that she brought up was just outlandish. I think it was in that December 15th meeting that everything went down at.
Maybe they'll renovate enough to where I can actually get a hold and talk to an engineer whenever I go up there instead of being told, oh, just leave a message. They'll email you back. I'm like, I came up here because you guys aren't replying to my emails.
Right.
So yeah.
Well, and
must be nice.
So that courthouse. So we talk about Brownsbridge Road. It's interesting that David Gibbs proposed that the courthouse go there. We already own the land, save the county some money, but then we don't own the land in the building. It's held up in an LLC. So if no one had been,
paying attention,
a whistleblower, right, and getting it fixed, I think that's what they would have been like. Well, no, we're not going to use Brownsbridge Road. But also, if you look at the land grab around the square and of course, they won't tell you where they're going to put it at. But obviously, we have a development authority. We have a steering committee for the comprehensive plan. A lot of those are developers, construction, real estate, attorneys. Who owns a lot of the land around the square? And if you think about a courthouse bigger than what we have, because obviously they need space, where's there a parcel of land that is big enough to house the new courthouse?
Nowhere now since they built the Midway Greenery. There's
not. So you're going to have to assemble multiple tracts of land and raise all the buildings. You're just going to put them in a dumpster. Where's it going to go? There's just not a single tract of land around the square that would house a courthouse. If you've lived here long enough and you've driven around, there's just not. What I think the county is also screwed up, why didn't they buy the old Lakeshore Mall when it was for sale?
Right.
That'd have been a great partial for a courthouse.
In a whole complex there, yeah.
You got multiple road frontages,
plenty of parking,
multiple ways to get in and out, as plenty of land, it seems like.
And they talk about a bargain too.
Yeah, right. And they could have still just leased it out until they were ready to build it, until the SPLOST dollars were there. But no, let somebody else buy it. I go back to Blue Ridge Shopping Center. If you know where Blue Ridge Shopping Center is, that was plenty of land to build a courthouse.
Yeah, now we got 400 condos over there.
They could have bought the Big Lot Shopping Center, probably Blue Ridge Shopping Center, the Cinema West property, and I guess I'm talking to some old people. If you remember Cinema West,
oh yeah, I remember it well.
And so that was a viable option, but no, there's no one forward thinking enough. But and I don't know. I don't think the building's full of idiots. I don't think that at all. So what is it? Like, why are we not using our thinking hat and looking? 5 years ago they knew we needed a new courthouse. This didn't come up with it in the last 6 months, I hope. So,
well, Korey, I'm gonna be on the other side of that coin. Respectfully, that is a building full of idiots, because, like you said, there's a lot of things that, and then that's on par with government. Like that's literally on par with government, because they're not forward thinking. It's one of those things where you have unlimited resources, essentially, because you know what, we're always going to have this tax cattle that's going to pay their taxes, and we're never going to run out of money. We don't need to spend mental energy to focus on what's the best option here. So
yeah, I mean, I try to be respectful, right? But I get what you're saying, because
yeah.
I mean,
You're running for office. I understand you're trying to be respectful, but I'll be blunt about it. Yeah, I'll
Katie
be
will
blunt
turn
about
a
it.
lot of things around up there, but we'll see.
I hope so.
And I'm just afraid that, I mean, this is going off on another thing, kind of. I think she may end up being collateral damage when all said and done, when this planning commission stuff comes out. To stand hunting them, keep fighting it the way they are, because wait till discovery comes out. If it gets bound over to court, it ain't gonna be pretty. I mean, it may get Zach Probst and everybody involved in it. We don't know where it's gonna lead.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think there's a top down component to that investigation that needs to be exposed, because I think everybody knew what was going on. They knew it was wrong. They knew it was breaking the law. And to me, the law is the law. There's no.
I said that from the get go. Zach Probst and everybody, they knew what was going on. They just kind of ignored it because it's been happening probably for 15 years.
Right.
Because even Braswell and Stan Hunt, their testimony to that investigator said it'd been happening as long as they had been there.
Yeah, and they've gone to the training, so it's not like they haven't received any kind of training on this either. So, and again, I went when it first came out. Well, we didn't know. Well, no, we know that ignorance is not an exception to the law.
No,
you can't be ignorant, and you're in that position. And I found out the other night, basically, when these commissioners appoint somebody to, say, the planning and zoning board, there's no formal application process.
no.
This is who I want. Are y'all going to vote on them or not? And they're like, yeah, we'll vote on them. They're fine. We'll let them on. No,
it's a good old boy network. So
yeah, and to me, when you have something like that, and they're going to be representing the county, and they're not elected, and that's unfortunate with the elected position, that there's not some kind of application process, an aptitude test.
Well, there should be a vetting process for sure.
But for any person that the commissioners appoint, there should be an application process. I hope they do a background check, but I don't know if they do. And then but they're making decisions for the county, have access to county resources, material, and things of that nature. But there doesn't seem to be any kind of checks and balances, and that's a recurring theme across the board at the county, is checks and balances are just non-existent. Ethics. Let's talk about ethics. And that basically there's no ethics training.
No, there's no ethics training at all.
If there is, they don't take it serious, and that's unfortunate, because again, I go back to that is solely because of our tax dollars that it all exists.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's to the point to where somebody's got to hold somebody accountable, instead of everybody just turning the other cheek because they don't want to rock the boat. Well,
the other thing that I got a few talking points, and we can hit on that, because again, we could probably talk till midnight. But with the Hall County government, they have organizational values, and they're plastered all over the building. I don't know if you've ever seen them, but I took a picture of it a few months ago. Actually, I took it on December 17th, and I guess that was the day of the planning and zoning hearing,
right.
December 17th. But one of the things and they're really good if they'd follow them. but valuing transparency, because they're it's serve, right? And so the V in serve is valuing transparency. And it says, we will maintain openness and transparency as a basic tenet of our organizational structure. We will adhere to the highest ethical standards in the execution of our duties and responsibilities. I think they should rip all those off the wall and throw them in the trash. Because that they just are not following their organizational values. They don't care. That's just lip service. The first one is serving citizens. We will always highly value the citizens we serve as the object of our continual focus on service. We will support the achievement of professionalism to our citizens and within the organization by our conduct, speech, demeanor, and decision making. And it's just laughable because they should be reading those every morning when they walk in the building.
Right.
And I mean, it starts from the top down, and you
100%.
have so many issues at the board of commissioners level. Again, the good old boy system that's been kind of what they've gotten entitled to over the years, and kind of trickles down, and then the employees kind of look at that and like, okay, these are just words on a wall. There's no follow through on any of this. So why am I gonna do it?
Right. And
it goes all the way up to the county administrator. I mean, Probst got the job, didn't even have to compete against anybody.
well, and for me, county commission meetings are just that. They're commissioner meetings. And so you have the chairman and 4 commissioners, and they are running the show, leading the meeting. You have the chairman. W-2 employees have no place unless they're spoken to or ask a question. So county administrator has no place in that meeting speaking unless he's spoken to.
Right.
For consultation to clear up something. But you'll find time and time again, and it's gotten better because I've made a few comments about that, that this is not your meeting. You're an employee. You're a W-2 employee who works for the citizens of Hall County. This is not your meeting. You can sit there. We're glad you're here, but we don't need you to speak unless you're spoken to. And that's not to be disrespectful. That's just the decorum of the meeting.
Yep. And we run into the same issue with the Board of Education. I mean, it's countywide,
Oh, the Board of Education.
So,
I don't even have time to even worry about that. But yeah, the same thing. You have a superintendent, a W-2 employee who is leading the school board meeting. No, the school board members who are elected by the citizens of Hall County should be leading that meeting.
Yeah.
100%.
Schofield works for them.
That's it.
Not the other way around.
And if they have a question, that's why the superintendent is there, to answer their questions, not to lead that meeting.
Yeah. The school board members sometimes don't even speak.
Yeah. And so until the school board members get a backbone, and I'd say that to their face, and if they're in the room, get a backbone, start leading your own meeting, because that's the meeting, the school board meeting.
Right.
County commission meeting.
And it's like they feed off each other, the county government and the Board of Education. They've got in these ruts that we've got to have new people in there to break these cycles.
Right.
Do the Board of Education folks actually know that they're the ones that's supposed to be leading the meetings, or is it kind of like it's just been going on for so long?
They know they're just scared of Schofield.
Well, Bill Thompson and Brian Sloan should know out of anybody, because they've been in this. Bill was the, I guess he was the assistant principal at Johnson when I was there. Great man. He knows how the system works. He knows how the board works. Brian Sloan, this is not his first rodeo in the school board, right? And I think he's running unopposed. He may have a Democrat.
I mean, they're both 20-year members overall.
So, they were there when what was it? Fordham was superintendent. Was that
right
before Will Schofield was Fordham? So they know. But yeah, I guess we can talk about commission processes and stuff. Running for District 1, if we want to go down that road, and
Yeah,
our current
District 1, I mean, that's a very controversial district because a lot of the stuff the current commissioner's doing.
Well, yeah, and I spoke at Reunion Country Club the other night and hit on this, and the number of approved, we'll call it lots in Hall County. I've heard estimates as high as 15,000. It seems to be probably around 10,000 lots that have been approved that can be built on today.
Right. Now,
they're ready.
We need to make it clear those are not single family homes. A lot of them condos or apartments. Or there's 10,500 units that could be still dwellings that people can live in that are already approved.
Sure. And one of them, I hit on is Old Winder Highway. On Old Winder Highway in the last, we'll just say 6 years, now they've approved over 3,000 units. We'll say 3,000 doorsteps, 3,000 doors.
Yeah, that's fine.
Between the Riverwalk / Revel community, the 700 apartments and townhomes next door, the 135 across the street, the 126 they just approved at 5111 Old Winder Highway. And that's a 4-mile stretch of road in Hall County. It goes from Winder Highway to Friendship Road, so a 4-mile, two lane stretch of road.
We were late. Matter of fact, a couple of weeks ago, taking my mom to the oral surgeon in Winder.
Yep.
The Patrick Walkers, and we were late because we were stuck in traffic for 30 minutes because a freaking construction truck at one of those subdivisions during that stretch had the whole road blocked.
Yeah.
You couldn't even get by.
Yep. So, you start looking at that, and, I can go down through the list here if everybody wants to hear it. But, we had 5031 Union Church Road is 208 lots. 3580 Poplar Springs Road is 192 lots. 5580 Old Winder Highway is 135 lots. That's actually 135 rentals, so that you can't even buy them.
Right.
5401 Old Winder Highway is a 700 apartments and townhomes, but also 1.7 million square feet of warehouse. We got 3969 Boulding Road is 59 lots. 4616 Winder Highway is 52 lots. Clark Farms, Spout Springs Road is 135 lots. They're all rentals. Another one at 6804 Spout Springs Road is townhome rentals. And then we got 5601 Old Winder Highway, which is about 2,000 lots, 2,000 doorsteps, 2,000 units.
And that Clark Homes, that's a big sucker.
Yeah.
Are these rentals being proposed as rentals, or are they supposed to be, or are they being proposed as something for or affordable housing?
So some of them come across as fee simple, so that they can be purchased, right? They're going to have ownership as units. But then some of these just end up, we'll say it's fee simple, but again, if they can sell all of them to one person, then is it still fee simple? Because they did sell it to someone. It's just that that was never the intention. It was always going to be rentals. I did ask that about the 700 apartments and townhomes. Obviously, apartments are going to be rentals, but at Old Winder Highway, because they didn't have it explicitly listed, are they rentals or not? So I made a point to ask: are these going to be rentals? Yes, the apartments and townhomes are 100% rental.
Well, and another thing I want to bring up that goes to this is I know that the Norton agency, I had some friends try to rent from them. They make it to where their properties have to be rentals. If you say their rent's $1,800 a month, you got to make $5,400 a month just to qualify for it.
That's right.
So you got to make 3 times your salary to qualify to even get a rental home. And so that makes it to where you have to struggle just to get it. You're not going to be able to purchase these homes.
Well, it seems like this is an ongoing theme in today's real estate market, where a lot of developers going in there to build to rent. And maybe this is something where the commission has to put in the conditions that these cannot be rent to own, like these, like they usually do it in HOAs where only 10% of the houses can be rented out or something like that. And from the beginning, from the approval of the development, once it gets passed, that has to be in there that no more than X amount can be rented, or none can be rentals, period. And I don't know the legality behind it. I don't know if that's too much for a government to be like overstepping, or especially like a local government to be overstepping. But if these developers are coming in here and trying to pull on heartstrings of the commissioners and stuff, talking about, oh well, we need more affordable housing for the community here, and then turn around, like Korey said, sell it to one individual or one institutional investor or whoever, and then all they're doing is they're turning around and renting them, completely defeated the purpose. And not only that, it adds to the overgrowth problem in the county.
Well, I think here's the issues that I have is the fact that we have these commissioners stand up there saying they care about, we need affordable housing, we need affordable housing, we need affordable housing. And they go right around and approve 700 apartments and townhomes. And then they go approve 135 townhomes that are rentals. Or it's not explicitly said in the application what they are unless you ask and get them, make them say it, is that we're not promoting affordable housing, we're promoting rentals. And that's not affordable housing. So just call it what it is instead of saying you care about affordable housing, because obviously you don't.
Mm-hmm.
You don't care about affordable housing at all.
Well, see, that's where Viral and I have talked about this a lot. These local governments make the housing where it's not affordable when they stipulate, oh, you got to have a 50-year shingle, you got to have hardy plank or brick, it's got to be so many thousand square feet, it's got to have, that adds cost to the housing.
Well,
what was your opinion of going back to the idea of building subdivisions of starter homes, 13, 14, 1,500 square foot homes? You can make those nice subdivisions and still not hurt the value of the $500,000 homes next door,
Yeah.
Because a 25-year-old's not going to be able to afford a 3,500, 4,000 square foot house.
Well, and
$600,000.
Well, and we're at a point where our affordable housing is a starter home is $400,000.
Right.
That's crazy.
That's just absolutely nuts.
And so one of the big issues I see is, I get the concept, people are trying to make money. That's just the number one goal of everybody in this. But one of the ones that stands out, and you can see it repeated time and time again, is the alpaca farm, as I call it. And that address was 5166 Union Church Road. But everybody affectionately called it the alpaca farm because the family that owned it had alpacas, and we'll call them good acquaintances of ours. The husband was a dentist and he's retired and everything. So they got time to retire and they sold their farm. And this one sticks out to me a lot because it was 88 acres. Half of it's probably in a floodplain. There's no sewer access around whatsoever.
Right.
And the application comes across as high density development, and they want to put, let's see if I got the number. I think it's over 100 homes on the alpaca farm on 44 acres because they only could use half of it. And so but there's no sewer access. So it comes across as a high density development or PRD, right? And, our current commissioner, Kathy Cooper, she recused herself, and her words were to Access North Georgia, or WDUN at the time, whatever it is. I'm going to recuse myself because it's too close to my house. And to me, that's why you're a district commissioner, because I need you to vote on stuff that is close to your house. That's the whole premise of the concept of you representing your district. You vote. You can't. That's not an excuse.
No.
too close to my house. No, that's when you vote. And so she recused herself. That property was approved. Magically, sewer shows up. Pretty sure the county paid for that. But the buyer from that bought it from the original owners, for the alpaca farm owners, he bought it. Say he bought it this morning, but then turned around and sold it this afternoon. He flipped it, right?
Right.
And he cleared over $1 million. And then whoever bought it from him flipped it and sold it again. And so these properties are changing hands 2 or 3 times before they get to the actual builder.
Right.
And so, you start affecting, the price per lot significantly, because you have 2 or 3 people making 7 figures just flipping it.
Yeah. Korey, let me ask you this. How do you feel about commissioners, again, putting it into the condition from the beginning that to again avoid stuff like this? And again, I don't know if it's overstepping boundaries or not, or the legality of it, but we're only approving this for the applicant. If you sell this to somebody else, they have to go through this entire process all over again.
Yeah, some form of that I would be 100% on board with, or a sunset clause that basically we will approve this, but you have 12 months to apply for your land disturbance permit. You got so many months after that to do this, that, and have benchmarks. If you don't, it reverts back to the original zoning. Another one that is probably a good example of that would be that at least we can talk about is 5401 Old Wander Highway. So the family that owns that lives in Gwinnett County. They've had it, I think, since the 80s. And they bought it as kind of a nest egg. I get it. That's the name of the game, right? Invest in real estate, make some money. So the applicant has been working on this for probably close to a year now, and still has not purchased the property from this family. So he has it under contract with conditions, I'm sure, that he's not going to purchase it until he can get it rezoned how he wants. They've already approved the rezoning, but he still hasn't purchased it yet. Now he's coming back Thursday because he wants a condition to change. And at the original meeting where it was approved, Jeff Stowe told them, this is the condition. And they kind of bellyached about it. And he's like, does it work for you or not? Because we'll let you withdraw. Do you want to withdraw your application? No, the conditions are good for us. Okay, good. I don't want you coming back in 6 months bellyaching that these conditions don't work for you, that I can't make no money like this. Don't want to hear it. Don't come back. Well, guess what? They are sashaying their way back to try to get some conditions changed. And it'll be this Thursday. But he still hasn't purchased the property. So what he's doing is stringing along this seller, because he's basically trying to bundle it up in a pretty red bow so he can sell it to somebody. He can't find a buyer with the current conditions, right?
Right.
I think, if these sellers knew what was going on or whatever, would tell them to go kick rocks. I'm not extending your contract. They got the rezoning. Now let them go peddle it to somebody and make, another $1 million off of what they're trying to do, because that's what, we're dealing with a bunch of middlemen is what it boils down to.
Yeah, that's what it boils down to.
And what's funny is on the south end down here, we're dealing with it. And, again, all this is public information in the application, is a guy named Cameron Henderson. And so, at the 5580 Old Winder Highway, 135 townhomes, the applicant's Cameron Henderson. Well, one of the expired listings on that is an assemblage, was Kathy Cooper's listing that expired, and he bought it.
Is that Atlas Development tied in?
Yep, that's Atlas Development. Okay. The 700 apartments and townhomes and the 1.7 million square feet of warehouse, the applicant is Cameron Henderson. Kathy voted yes on both of those. 5079 Old Winder Highway, 88 townhomes. Kathy recused herself because she was the buyer's agent for Cameron Henderson, and the commission approved it. there's a second part of that is 51 or 5011 Old Winder Highway. She recused herself, and that part got denied in January 2025. Well, she unrecused herself because the applicant sued and it came back out of Superior Court. She unrecused herself because she said a conflict didn't exist anymore.
Yeah. That was the big December meeting and what led to the lawsuits.
Well, and what led to Beth Garman getting resigning in lieu of termination.
Exactly.
Because they were hiding the rezoning sign. That's a whole nother story. So, but again, the applicant's Cameron Henderson. Zero Cash Road is now 5 homes, which is fine. It was zoned that way, agriculture, and they divided into 1 acre lots, and they're McMansions down there. But the buyer was Cameron Henderson. Buyer's agent's Kathy Cooper. 5763 and 5745 Union Church Road. The buyer for that was Cameron Henderson. The buyer's agent, Kathy Cooper. Now there's 5 homes there too. They tore a house down, divided it up, and made it into 5 1 acre lots. 5166 Union Church Road, the alpaca farm I was talking about. The buyer, Cameron Henderson. Kathy recused herself. Unknown buyer's agent. Don't know who it was. It was basically an off-market property, but there's rumors around. But again, I don't have anything concrete, so I'm not going to speculate. 5767 E. Reed Road, which is off Strickland Road at Platt Park. That was a tract of land. The applicant, Cameron Henderson. 5610 Winder Highway, 88 townhomes. The applicant, Cameron Henderson. Staff recommended denial for that one because the proposal, it was inconsistent with the residential future land use. And it was denied, and they sued the county. Then it came back before the county in December of 2024, and Kathy made a motion to approve, and it was approved. So we've got these conflict of interest. But what's interesting too is that the alpaca farm was too close to her house, and she recused herself. But there's 2 developments that are closer to her house, and she didn't recuse herself, and she voted to approve those. One of them is 4670 Union Church Road, and they put 100 homes on 50 acres. It adjoins her property line. Again, no sewer around, but all of a sudden sewer magically shows up. Staff recommended denial on that one too. And then Kathy approved it. And, I told him the other night, she can tell you who the seller was, but it was Tom Oliver. That was who the seller was for that property. Right. And then, of course, she's not going to recuse herself because she acts like it's a complete stranger. I don't know who he is. I'll just, I'm going to vote, yes. And so, there's a deep relationship there. I think it should be noted that there is, and they're trying to hide it because they know they're wrong. They're embarrassed of it, and they're hiding it. And he's making money, and then the next month that's her appointee to the hospital advisory board is Tom Oliver. And so I'm just fed up.
Yeah,
and that's why I'm here. She's not going to run unopposed, and and I'll even go a step further, and I don't even really care because this is public notice too, or you can find it. But she has an expired real estate license. It expired in November of 2024 due to lapsed fees. So she just didn't pay her fees and let her license lapse.
Right, and legally she can't do anything in real estate except hand out like brochures and stuff.
She can't even really do that.
Exactly.
Yeah, she had to have to do something that is basically a
bookkeeper or something.
Yeah, what they call it, ministerial jobs, like an admin job, something. Right. She can't even have advertise her broker on her cell phone message because the goal is that you don't want to deceive any consumer that you might be licensed because you're not. You're lapsed. Well, she had an active listing, and she listed on October 20th of 2025.
That's a oversight on her broker's part, in my opinion. Like that's where the broker's supposed to come in and be like, whoa,
yeah, what are you doing?
Can't list anything for you now. You shouldn't be doing any kind of real estate activity.
Yeah,
when you're.
Because I seen that paper and it's like it's listed under that guy's name and it's her as the showing agent or something. She's listed as a showing agent, not a real estate agent.
But,
You can't show legally. You're not supposed to go show
No.
property to any prospective clients too. So
yeah, because the Georgia Real Estate Commission does a great job at protecting the consumer. I mean, they truly do. And I know, real estate agents get a bad rap, and there's reasons why. This is a reason why. She's one of the reasons why realtors, real estate agents get a bad reputation, because it's shady. And but directly on this sheet, it lists her expired license number.
Yeah.
And you call the Georgia Real Estate Commission, and they're like, no, that license hasn't been active since November 30th, 2024. It's accurate. And, well, should they be listing properties? Absolutely not. Her broker knows she's not active. She knows she's not active. She should not be listing. But if you look, and I even took a picture of it, shown by appointment only, call agent Kathy Cooper, list her phone number.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing here, folks? This is a person that's supposed to be your public servant, your elected official. I mean,
I had a couple of people ask me, and I don't know the answer. What's the difference in the board of realtors and the real estate licensing division? They're two different entities, right?
So when you pass your test and get everything through the state, you're just a real estate agent.
Right.
Most brokerages, I'll say most, it's probably not most, but a lot of your reputable brokerages, I'll say that, require their agents to be a realtor. And what that means is that you take an ethics course, you agree to a higher standard of ethics and values than just the basic real estate. It's supposed to set you apart of the designation. And the Georgia Real Estate Commission likes that, because you do have more training. You have to be a member of a board. So like you have to pay us right around, say, $400 or $500 a year to be a board member. And that's basically, you agreed to be held to a higher standard.
And have ethics and more.
So with that being said, Korey, I've been licensed myself since 2010, I think. Was a part of a board for 2 years. Never been a part of a board since I switched over to a different broker. And I would say I have more ethics without all the training than most of the realtors.
Yeah,
the folks that are labeled as realtors.
I agree to that, but with the realtors that you've agreed to operate, right? Whether you do or not, that's a character problem.
Yeah, right.
But you've agreed to. So if you've agreed to it and you don't, that's a problem. And and that's what we go back to. People are like, well, you have a real estate license. You're no different than Kathy. And it's like, well, it's kind of like gun ownership. Guns can be very dangerous and very powerful. Depends on how you use it. But if you're operate with low morals and unethical, anything can be dangerous. And people are like, well, we shouldn't have real estate agents as county commissioners. Okay, well, it only pays $45,000 a year, and with that, then I say you can't have surveyors, you can't have engineers, you can't have attorneys, you can't have builders, developers. None of those people can be commissioners. Like, you're ruled out. But anybody can take a bribe. So you have to have somebody that operates with a high moral character and with ethics. I've turned down money from some special interest groups to want to donate to my campaign. Good money that would benefit my campaign. But early on, I made a stance that I would not accept money from the Swamp, the Gainesville Godfathers, or a special interest group.
Right.
And I stood true to that. And my financial disclosures will reflect that. I don't hide anything. I'm an open book. But I refuse. I'm not going to be beholden to anyone. You can't buy my vote. And that makes me unpopular with a certain group of people in the county.
Yeah, and it does. And same thing's happening in District 3 we're seeing right now, but that's a different story. But it's not just, they've got their tentacles everywhere all over the county, and that's why they keep at least 3 people on that board to where they can pretty much control what the hell's going on.
That's right. Yeah, it's all about control.
Yeah. And let's get the Billy Powell right now. I know it's not, but you're going to have to deal with him if you get elected. how do you hold his feet to the fire when he don't show up half the time when he don't want to vote against his buddies? I mean,
Right.
is there a way to combat that, or put it in, maybe push the board of commissioners to make rules on this stuff?
Well, there is a guideline. What is the punishment? Who's going to hold them accountable? What's that look like? But you can only miss, I think it's 2 meetings per quarter.
But he missed 4 of the last 5 until last week, I believe.
Yeah, he's well, I'd have to go back and look, but yeah, he'd missed like 50% of the meetings this quarter.
Yeah, I mean, that's crazy.
And for the rumor mill is just because he didn't like what was being voted on. And to me, that's tough. Show up. That's your job. You were elected to represent your district. Represent your district well. Quit acting like a toddler, stomping your feet and holding your breath till you get your way. Like, grow up.
Yeah, and it's like everybody says they take up for these people. Oh, they're good people. I've known them my whole life. To me, that's irrelevant. Good people make bad choices a lot.
Sure.
And just because, say, me and you are best friends and you make a bad choice, as a friend, I should hold you accountable.
Right. They don't like accountability, right? That's a bad word, accounting. Right. Accountability. You can see that with our sheriff, and I'm not even going to go down that trail, but planning and zoning board, accountability, staff, accountability, commissioners, accountability. I mean, I keep going,
board accountability.
I keep going back to accountability. You're held to a higher standard. You should act in a manner of above reproach, where, if you ever played, any kind of high school sports, I had a coach, he'd tell me, character is what you do when no one's looking. Character is what you do in the dark. So have character, and be above reproach, act in a manner that is respectable, ethical, high values, and, remember why you're here. You're here to serve the citizens of Hall County. That's it. You should have some education with that. Like I told Viral, the whole, he's a good man, I've known him for years. Great. That's a bare minimum. Like that shouldn't even almost be a talking point, because that should be a given.
It's just the bar's so low nowadays.
Right. Because I mean, we're in all these Facebook groups and all these sitting commissioners, they don't like the Facebook groups and social media because we
ask for accountability. Yeah,
we're exposing all their crap. You know.
That whole accountability thing, though. I mean, it's a disease that starts in DC, runs at the state level, and then runs to the county levels and the city levels. It's practically been non-existent, before social media and technology, where more people can get access to a lot of this information. They were getting away with so much that we don't even know about, before technology came along and whatnot. So now that there are so many ways for them to get caught in doing what they're doing, they don't like it. No offense to any of you guys. You guys aren't boomers, but to anybody watching, boomers do not like it, because now it can't do this shady stuff behind closed doors and everything. They want to be transparent. They want to do this to your face, but really they're not. When we saw with all the examples that Korey provided with Kathy Cooper's business relationships with Atlas Development, and all of that's public knowledge. So, what are we doing here?
Well, I paid attention to a lot of this for the most of my life. Like Korey, I've been around the local politics my whole life. My aunt used to be the superintendent of Gainesville City Schools, and I mean, we've always hung around the local politicians. And the days of, if they got caught doing a shady deal or doing something, they would make up some bullshit excuse and if they got confronted at the Board of Commissioners meeting or Board of Education meeting, if they had 10 people show up to confront them, they'd make up some bullshit excuse. Then the public would just say, "Oh, okay, that makes sense," and they'd go on. And that's not happening anymore. And and that's what we've got to have more of.
Maybe look, the prime example of this lack of accountability, and I don't know why I didn't bring this up just a little while ago. Your planning commissioners.
Yeah.
You got your planning commissioners suing Hall County after being caught red-handed, after the investigation, after they've already talked to the guy that was investigating them. Literally spells it out that, hey, yes, we were doing this.
For a $12,000 a year job.
Right.
So that the only conclusion you can come to is there's a lot more going on behind closed doors where you're making way more than $12,000 a year.
Well, Korey can probably find the post that's in the Concerned Citizens group. Since I've been kicked out, I can't find it, but there was one guy that worked for the Norton agency in there talking about Stan Hunt after he got fired, talking about just for his office, the people in his office he shares with 2 or 3 people. Stan Hunt had done $1 million worth of cabinet work. And that's just one corner of the Norton agency. How many other agencies do they have?
Right.
And people don't understand. Norton's got offices in Alabama and everywhere. I mean, they're southeast.
Hey, it's a good business to be in. That's all I see. I got to run here in a little bit, but I wanted to cover one thing with you, Korey. This is somewhat of on a macro level too in this country, but with inflation kind of just running out of control, and with this war we got going on now, all the money printing that's going to happen, inflation is just going to continue to kick down the road. And this is something that I've been kind of wrap my head around. And one of the reasons I feel like essentially government should be non-existent at every level, but it's part of our life at the moment. But there's a lot of older folks in our county, in our communities, retired, fixed income. I know they have some property tax things for a lot of the older folks to opt out of school taxes and whatnot. But then you got the younger generation too that's struggling. Folks that bought housing or real estate, land or whatever it may be, seeing nothing but the property taxes continuing to increase year over year over year over year. At what point does the commission or does the county come to a point where hey, there's got to be an end road at a certain point where okay, we have to start cutting back. We got to cut expenses. We got to cut something. But what's your take on that? I know Tyler's done a couple of posts and covered the county's budgets and whatnot, but it's ever increasing. Even with the T-Splost and the S-Splost and E-Splost and all this stuff, it just feels like there's just never enough money for the government to run. And because of that, we have to bring this constant growth in, because we need the tax money. But then because of that growth, you need more tax money. So it's like a never-ending cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what's your thoughts on that as far as at what point are we going to stop increasing people's property taxes to the point where they're forced to sell?
So, you can put on your, tinfoil hat and say, is it on purpose to price people out of their properties, where they can't afford it, right? For whatever reason, we talk about that like with land, right? If it's, not in conservation, people are forced to do something different because they can't afford the property taxes. When you got people that, they're spending $1,000 a month just on their property tax bill. Granted, they live on the lake, they can afford it. Well, at some point they can't because they're on a fixed income, because everybody gets to a point where they're on a fixed income at a retirement age, and they're still paying $1,000 a month in property taxes. Well, eventually that doesn't work for them. So they're forced to sell, and they've maybe been in the house for 30 years. And so I chased that one, but I go back to the county loses about 15 cents per square foot on residential development. So when we approve a new residential neighborhood, that is not a win for the county as far as tax money. Because by the time you statistically put those kids in school, develop the infrastructure, whatever that is, provide fire services, government services, emergency services, everything, all the services, the county loses about 15 cents a square foot. So commercial makes up the lion's share of that loss, right? Because that's where your point of sale, your probably not so much maybe industry, but there is some of that, right? With the property taxes that the industries pay on equipment, right? You pay that at the convenience store, we pay it at the dental office, basically personal property tax bill, and collecting tax dollars at the register. So we make up for that loss through commercial industry point of sale. So doing more residential does not win the county. If anything, it creates to me a bigger burden on the existing taxpayers. Tyler and I, we talk a lot because part of a couple of things. Splost, we're in Splost 8, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
And Splost 8, the amount of tens of $1 million in overages we've collected of what we agreed upon. So Splost to me is we'll just say it out loud, special purpose local option sales tax. So it's special purpose, it's optional, and it's a sales tax. We've collected above and beyond probably double what was projected or what was asked to be collected. So we completed those projects per se, in theory, but then we've added pet projects. Well, that money, instead of pet projects, it could have been used to service county debt. This is the state requirements for this money collected, which we don't have any county debt. We're debt-free county. So that money could have gone back into the general fund to alleviate the tax burden for the citizens, property tax burden for the citizens. It could have gone to the general fund. If you'd have put that money back into the general fund and rolled the millage rate back to zero, the citizens of Hall County could effectively not had to pay property taxes for a year.
Right.
Right. Then we go a step further and talk about a FLOST, which is a floating local option sales tax that can be used directly for property tax relief and I believe it's just homestead exemptions. So one, I think you create an environment where people want to settle roots here. We want people to come here and raise their family, spend their money, live their lives, because that's the basis. Home ownership is the basis of a stable economy, right? I mean, that's what's touted to us. People are less transient. They own a home. They're going to stay put. They're going to, live their life there, spend their money. That's the key to wealth too, is home ownership. Build an equity. And so, but with a floating local option sales tax, that penny tax could basically replace our property taxes. People are like, well, state law doesn't allow that. Well, state law allows us to dictate our millage rate. So if we can collect an extra tax, a penny tax, we can roll our millage rate back to effectively zero. Right. Or roll it back to, I can't remember what it is right now. But then, we also have to get on board with the school system, because the school system, they're their own monster. And, not to chase a rabbit on this as well, but when you start looking at the county budget, and I talk about, the times we live in of technology and advancement. And to me, anything that can compute numbers, like our finance department, I'm sure they're all great. I know a few of them. But when they had Finance Appreciation Week, there's 16 of them, and they're all some kind of director or manager.
Yeah, I mean,
16 in the finance department. Road maintenance, they list having 2 secretaries with 6 staff.
Yeah, you say the same thing with Board of Education. Everybody over there is a superintendent of something. It's just.
But then one of the things that bothers me, you've gone to enough meetings to look at the consent agenda of things they're voting on. We have a $65,000 a year bottled water contract. And I know I harp on that and I beat a dead horse, and people are probably tired of hearing it. But if we have a $65,000 a year bottled water contract, what else we got? we had a commissioner the other night speak about her pet projects. I'm like, what are you doing with pet projects as a county commissioner?
Right.
She
Which
talked about
commissioner was this?
Kathy Cooper. She's talking about defects. Apparently, we're giving county dollars to defects because that's her pet project.
It ain't doing no good.
Why are we giving our county dollars to a state agency that we've already funded with our tax dollars?
You got that right.
And and we've been a part of the defect system as foster parents.
Right.
I have a heart for the services they do, but I really would think we should look at, I don't want to sound callous, but when you call it a pet project and we're giving them, I can't remember how many hundreds of $1,000s it is of our tax dollars. Well, we've already funded it once with our state dollars. What are we funding again there? That's not
do you think she understands that some of the tax dollars that we already pay already go to defects?
I have no idea.
Does she think she's being noble?
Oh, it's definitely a noble cause. Definitely white knight.
Yeah, she got a feather in her cap. Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what
that was some of her talking points the other night. Instead of how she votes on high density development, she wants to talk about all the good things she does with defects and whatever. And so, I'm gonna call a couple of other commissioners, ask them what their pet projects are. Because if she's got one, I know the other ones do.
Yeah.
And why do we have pet projects? I don't even like that term. Like, to me, that's a derogatory term, pet projects. This is just something that's important to you, but is it important to your constituents and your voters and your citizens and the people in your district? Is it important to them? But you're spending their tax dollars like it is. No, it's important to you. This is not about you. But so many of our commissioners, and I use that loosely because we do have a couple that are great, and I do think they're fighting for what is best for the county. But they're up there for themselves now. They're not up there for the voters. It's evident when anybody goes up there to speak in opposition of some kind of pet project, they don't like it. They don't like the accountability. And so that's some of the issues. We're not spending our tax dollars wisely.
No.
It could be spent a little more efficiently. Because people are fed up. They're tired of paying out the nose for taxes. You start looking at every tax you pay, especially as a business owner. Beryl, I know you look at it. When you're taxed here, taxed there, taxed again. And I tell people a postage stamp is a tax. You just don't realize it.
Yeah, they name it licenses and fees, and and
all a tax. It's all
a tax.
Yeah, 100%. It's all the money you're giving to the government.
The average person pays around 60% of their pay in taxes.
Yeah, and what are we getting for that?
Exactly.
So, I guess sometimes, I'm about less government. I
am too.
We don't need our government in everything, and I some things can be changed. Also, I don't think we're collecting like we should either. Just on some little bit, I've done some digging with the Concerned Citizens Group on short-term rentals. They're subjected to hotel tax, but our county has a piss poor system.
They use the honor system, basically, right?
Basically, yeah.
I mean, yeah.
And there's just no system.
There's no honor in paying taxes. Okay, so good for them for not owning up to the motel and hotel sales tax.
And but our county wants to say, well, they have to have a business license and all this stuff. Well, who are they? Well, we don't know. Well, how many people stayed there this month? We don't know that either. They just send this form in, and we look at the form and collect the money. And
the guy that had the Airbnb across from us, he got in trouble for renting out a 9-space house for the 15 to 20 people all the time.
Right.
So he just took it off Airbnb and put it on short-term rental sites.
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't catch him on Verbo or Airbnb. You had to look on the site. He was skirting the law.
Well, what's interesting is the county gets a bulk payment from Airbnb, VRBO, whatever they are. They get even hotels.com. They get a bulk payment every month. And I'm like, well, what properties were those? We don't know. I'm like, ask them for an itemized list. Well, they can't give it to us. Why? For privacy. I said, you are the government. There's no privacy. I can't get it. as a citizen, but you need to know what these addresses are.
Yeah.
If you're going to have this system, have the system. If you're not, then just ditch it and don't care. But, the law is that these short-term rentals are subject to hotel, motel, innkeeper tax. And we don't have any hotels in unincorporated Hall County.
No.
We don't have any liquor stores in unincorporated Hall County.
Maybe that changes soon.
And so, all of our municipalities are collecting all this extra tax that we're not.
Right.
But then, if you got a hotel, a hotel in Oakwood and it catches on fire, who's responding? Hall County Fire Services.
Right.
Same way with Flower Branch. Who's responding? Hall County Fire Services. Same way with Brownston. Who's responding? Hall County Fire Services. And, Gainesville City is the only one that's got their own fire service, school system, police. They're more self-sufficient. But, City of Flower Branch, they rely on the county for everything.
Right. Well, case in point, the old regime with the county, Higgins and them, gave up the rowing center out here at Clarks Bridge Park. And since the cities took it over, they're making money hand over fist at that point.
Oh, they're killing
That's just one of the worst decisions ever because they didn't want to spend the money to renovate it.
Yeah, we paid them money to take it from us.
Yeah. I mean, that's just absolutely insane.
But, and there's one more, I guess, I know we got to wrap it up, but there's one coming up, we'll talk about land being annexed. Cities can annex land from the county, and basically they can get whatever they want. But the county can't do the opposite. The county can't take land away from a city. And if the city wants the land, the county can't do anything about it. Now they can request, we're denying your request, but the city can just do it anyways.
Yeah.
That's happening in District 1 off of J.M. Turk Road on a road called Sasser Road. And the property is owned by Steve McKibben. If anybody's familiar with
McKibben,
Hospitality, the hotel.
Yeah.
So he owns it. Well, he's going to annex in the city of Flower Branch because one, we're under a moratorium. Two, Flower Branch will approve it. And then, but the issue is that those people, and it's probably going to be 100% rental. They're going to end up going to Martin Elementary, and Martin Elementary is almost at capacity. They're going to use our fire services at the fire station right on the corner of Martin Road and Atlanta Highway. The access, best I can tell, the access is going to use a county road. There are not going to be any city roads involved in this access. So county taxpayers are left to bear the brunt of this development by road improvements, school system, and fire services. And we're just supposed to just take it on the chin.
Right.
And I don't agree with that. Something needs to change at the Capitol where these municipalities can't just, it's not monopoly. You can't just go and, take land and just do whatever you want to with it as a land grab. There needs to be some, needs to be able to be reciprocal.
Well, and that's one thing that I do agree with Schofield with. He does have the balls to take on Buford from doing all this crap.
Right.
He will stand up to Buford. I mean, it's cost the county a lot in the SPLOST renewal, which I'm not for SPLOST anyway, but if it's going to pass, you want the money. But,
correct.
And we need more people that'll stand up to these. It's like Jeremy, the superintendent, I'm drawing a blank for Gainesville City Schools. He wants the city to quit annexing in all this stuff because the school systems are already overburdened. The county's got to start working together with each other.
Yep.
The stuff that you're talking about.
100%.
And these municipalities, they don't understand. Well, they do. They don't care because it don't come out of their pocket. They still get their SPLOST money. They still get their cake and eat it too,
Yeah, they don't have any skin in the game. They just got all benefit.
Right. And it's not right. You are 100% correct. I mean,
like you said, we're giving them SPLOST dollars and everything else. And not Chase Rabbit, even you talk about Rest Haven. I don't even know why they exist, but they get, our SPLOST dollars.
Yeah.
So whatever. I mean, that's just just the system we're in, and you know.
Well, it's about that dumbass Lee Hawkins. I mean, he's a good dude, but him and Kathy, not him and Shelley Eccles, passed that stupid law to where one town like Buford can't stop SPLOST from being implemented like it did the last time. But now they passed a law, if one municipality doesn't want it, then the rest can pass it and it still be the full SPLOST. But the town that didn't want it still gets their SPLOST money.
Right.
I mean, why would they get anything if they didn't want to participate in it?
I know.
That's just absolutely, that's insanity.
Right. Yeah. Then you got cities like Brownston, they're getting it from 4 different counties.
Yeah. You know, and they're fixing to, then Brandon was talking about, they're talking about implementing property taxes down there too.
Oh, I bet that's coming. Why not? It's free money that they're not taking advantage of.
Free money.
Yeah.
That's how they look at it. Man,
Yeah.
we need a bigger piece of pie. What are they going to do? Move? Okay.
Right.
You know,
Korey, let me ask you again one last question, but this is a very intriguing conversation. You get elected, what's the first thing you're wanting to attack?
Probably some restructuring in the county administration.
Right.
You know, I think we got some issues with knowing our roles, and the commissioners are in charge, and too much authority, access, control has been given to what I go back to W-2 employees over the county commission. And I think it's because the county commissioners have gotten lazy over the years, don't want to deal with it, and like, we'll just pay somebody else to deal with it, and we can just collect our paycheck and do whatever we want, and we don't really have any responsibilities.
Right.
That needs to change. The commissioners need to have more hands-on. I would like to see some posted office hours for the commissioners. Another thing that is just maybe a gripe or an axe to grind with me is that with SPLOST, I shouldn't have to pay ORR to find out how my tax dollars are spent. So minimum with SPLOST, I would put basically a, we'll call it a 3-ring binder in the lobby of the government building. And you can flip through every SPLOST project and all the contracts associated with it, and you can see every bit of it for your viewing. If you would like a thumb drive, we'll offer it at basically cost to the county, whatever a thumb drive is. We'll buy them in bulk. And then quarterly, the thumb drive is updated with whatever new SPLOST, amendments, change orders, contracts have been added. And for just whatever the cost is to the county will be given to the citizen, and they can take it with them and look at it at home if they want to. It goes back to that transparency.
Right.
We should ultimately be transparent with people's tax dollars. It's their hard-earned dollars that the county's collected, and it should be used well. They should be good stewards of the money, very transparent how the money is spent, just no questions asked. And I shouldn't have to pay $18.80 to find out how the money was spent on the new health department.
Right.
That I shouldn't pay a tax to see how my tax dollars were spent. We'll go back to additional tax, right? So I'm being taxed again.
Right. And one thing I want to tie into that before we get off here is it ties into all this. What would be your solution to fix the screwed up UDC? What would the members, who would you have on the board, the small board or whoever?
The steering committee, I think, is what Chris is asking about.
Steers the new UDC that the county's trying to shore up right now. Would it be real estate agents? Would it be real estate agents, attorneys, doctors? Or how can that be fixed? Because the last one, it seems like, was written by the Norton Agency and a few other real estate companies to cater to their needs.
Well, I've got it printed. I don't know if for the camera, if anybody's watching, type of thing. I've got the UDC, the comprehensive plan.
Right.
I've got it printed. I've started carrying it basically everywhere I go, like, like it's my Bible. But for me, I think if you're, an elected official, it essentially is your Bible for that position, because you should know everything, the strategies, everything what went into this. To redo it, I think we have to look at it from I go back to statistical standpoint. We have to have an accurate sample of our population before we do anything else. I know we got to have this by state law, and it's got to be revised every 10 years. But, when you start looking at the steering committee, I was going through a couple of Bill Barry's about the only one I know that's what I call a stand-up guy with no conflict of interest. Maybe I don't really know him, but that's the only one I know of. Because when you start looking through here, you got Chris Braswell, Hall County Planning Commissioner, Kathy Cooper, Hall County Board of Commissioners, Drew Eccles.
Korey, hold on. Let me backtrack real quick. When you're saying those names, associate the industry that they work in also.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. Chris Braswell, Hall County Planning Commissioner, real estate agent. Kathy Cooper, Hall County Board of Commissioners, real estate agent. Drew Eccles, farmer, whatever. He's our state senator. Tim Evans, Greater Hall County Chamber of Commerce, also on the Hall County Development Authority. Beth Garman, Hall County staff. She has since been removed / resigned. Now she works for Rochester's Associate, which is an engineering survey firm in town. Steve Gillum, which says citizen, but he's also an attorney who represents high density developers, and he's got a pretty good success rate. We've got Kent Henderson, who's a developer, Brent Hoffman, a realtor, Stan Hunt, Hall County Planning Commissioner, Angie Kennedy was Carroll Daniel Construction, Berlinda Lipscomb, Hall County staff, but she's also on the Tax Assessor Board, Sherry Millwood, City of Oakwood, realtor, Atia Pandy, Landmark Development realtor, Gina Pelcher, Planning Commissioner, architect, Mark Pettit, Board of Education, now our clerk of courts, Brian Rochester Associate, Casey Riles brother. That's they do construction asphalt. Bill Schmid, Rochester's Associate. Johnny Varner, he's passed away. He was on the Hall County Planning Commission board. So we've got a lot of people that are into development and real estate on the steering committee. I think some of that is okay because of the knowledge and expertise that can bring. But, I think we need less staff on the steering committee, and we need more community input. Again, I go back to the sample size for the survey. When you look at the survey and here for District 1, like Chestnut Mountain, like of the people surveyed, 68% of the respondents, their wish was that nothing changed. They were happy with the way it existed right now. They didn't want it to be different.
Right.
But yet it has changed so much. And so why do a survey if you're not going to go with the wishes of the people surveyed? I'll hit on, we talk about rezoning. I've got this in here that is just an addition to the comprehensive plan, but it's the 7 constitutional grounds for denial of a rezone application in Georgia. The biggest, and these are from case law, but the biggest 3 for us in Hall County, especially South Hall, is environmental impact, infrastructure, and public safety. If it is detriment to the public safety, environment, and infrastructure, then I think it's grounds for denial. It's justified. The applicant can sue. They've started putting in all their applications that, if you don't do what I want, I'm going to sue you. I know, Chris, you talk about, growth. It needs to be managed better and have better parameters and I guess stewardship. Is that the growth has to be sustainable. Right now, it's not sustainable. I think we can put a pause on it. We have with a moratorium to an extent, because it sounds like a tree hugger, but nobody talks about noise pollution, light pollution in our county. And to me, those are huge things when you factor in developing. Is that I remember a time as a kid where you could actually see the stars. Now you can hardly see any stars.
Right.
I live down here in District 1 and on Union Church Road, and at pretty much any given time of the night, I can hear 985 trucks going up and down the road.
Right.
This low roar, right? It's only going to get worse. So right now, that's one of the big things with these rezonings is how does it benefit the public? What's the strain on our infrastructure? And what's our environmental impact? And to me, those are three big things that we can talk about and hold people's feet to the fire. These developers of no, we can't do this because of the road can't handle 8,000 additional cars today. They just can't.
Well, a lot of that'll come, I think, if we hold the developers accountable and make them pay for infrastructure improvements instead of passing it off onto the taxpayers.
Correct, because we can't maintain what we have right now.
Right.
I mean, not to beat a dead horse or continue down this or chase another rabbit, but in our current budget, we're paving about 30 miles of road a year in our county. The county maintains around 1,300 miles of road a year. So theoretically, it'll take, if a mile of road gets paved today, it'll be 43 years before it's paved again.
Right.
The three of us sitting here most likely won't be alive when that happens.
Right.
And so, my kids will be in their 50s when that happens. And I got young kids. And so we can't maintain what we have. We should probably be paving 100 miles of road a year.
Well, case in point, my road, I've been here, my parents have been on this road 50 years. It's been paved once.
There you
go. I mean,
yeah.
It's still in relatively good shape because there's not a lot of traffic on it. But it's,
right.
But that's just an example of how it's happening.
Sure, exactly. I mean, because that's what I said, in theory, it'll be 43 years before it's paved again, and again, wear and tear and all that stuff, other roads are going to, get more action than others, but we've got to get better at maintaining what we have, taking care of what we got, and putting our citizens first. I mean, that's just it has to happen. And I know that hurts a lot of these, swampy pocketbooks, but it is what it is. Start making a living the right way, instead of on the backs of the taxpayer.
Right, and that's exactly what's happening. Looks like we lost Viral for a few minutes. He may not come back, but that's fine. But we'll wrap up here soon. Anything else you want to kick the tires on or get into about anything that's coming up for you or anything that we haven't covered yet?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's, my campaign is pretty straightforward. I'd like to think I'm the best candidate for the job. I've put in the wrench work, and shown up shown up to the commission meetings. I've done the research, spent money, spent hours, and standing up to the commissioners for anything in District 1 and other districts as well. And speaking out against it for over a year now. No other candidate that's running has done that. They've not spoken at commission meetings for anything in District 1. And so I think that sets me apart. I've done the research. I've dove into the comprehensive plan. I've been involved in government, and seen how it works. And, my campaign is pretty much self-funded. I've taken a few, donations here and there, but again, no special interest groups, no swampy money, no Gainesville Godfathers have donated, nor do I want them to. I would turn the money down. I have. And so it's just me, right? I don't have a campaign manager per se. I'm not hired a political consulting company. I'm not going to be sending out, mass text messages begging for money or votes. I'm not going to be putting mailers in the mail, and just for you to throw them away. Again, I think that's a terrible use of resources. And any candidate locally that does that, I think it just shows that they're not, fiscally sound because they're wasting money,
right,
on stuff that doesn't matter. We need to be focused on what matters the most, and that's the voters and people of Hall County that live here and call this home and pay their taxes and want to be contributing members of society. That's my focus. So,
well, that's good. And I wish, I'm in District 3. I wish I could vote for you, but I'm sure trying to get the word out that, listen to what this guy has to say, You got some good ideas, you're clear-headed, and you can tell that you're not just flying by the seat of your pants.
Right.
I mean, everything's organized, it's well thought out, and we've got to have more of that in local government. And because right now, Hall County is a dumpster fire.
Right.
Politically, we're talking from the planning commission to the board of commissioners to the board of education to the sheriff's office. I mean, it's just even the marshal's office. I mean, they do a good job most of the time, but some stuff, that we found out behind the scenes, putting in ORRs and some of the stuff that goes on, that stuff's got to stop,
Right.
And the wasted money you talk about, it's got to stop. Like case in point with the Board of Education, they're paying Adam Storage like $100,000 a year to store old desks and books and equipment. Why don't they, all this land they got, put up a freaking metal warehouse and store it in it? You'd have it paid off in 2 or 3 years with the money you save from paying rent.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure we probably have the facilities that we could just go ahead and store it anyways.
Exactly. I mean, and that's not just the Board of Education. I'm sure the county government does it as well.
Right.
And it'd be nice if you could get on there so you could see the open book, the part of the books that we don't know where to look.
Well, and I have a strong suspicion that these commissioners are not even reviewing our county budget. They listen to the dog and pony show from the finance department,
right,
and believe it and just sign off on it.
Right.
They're not peeling back the layers and asking questions and seeing what's truly in here. And I joke, anybody can, you can balance the budget, right? That's easy. We spent the money that came in, it balanced. But are we cutting costs and doing what's best for the taxpayers that have funded this? Are we spending their money wisely? Are we being good stewards of the resources that have been given to us? And I'm going to say the answer is no.
Yeah,
they're not.
No,
And and when you start talking like that, people kind of freak out because they don't want the accountability, right? They don't want to hear that.
Right.
But it's the tax doll. It goes back to the taxpayer. Every time it goes back to the taxpayer.
Yeah. Well, case in point, when they bid stuff out, I mean, they say, oh, we've got 50 million to build this. Give me what we can get for 50 million. That's the wrong way to approach it. You approach it and say, hey, we need a new school or we need a new government building. How much this is what we want. How much is this going to cost?
Right.
And if that don't fit in your budget, then you start shrinking it. You make them redo the plans. You don't tell the engineer and architect how much you got, how much they can spend.
Right.
What if they could have built that same building for 30 million instead of 50?
Yep.
That's just a waste and you don't get the lowest bid that way. You don't get the top contractors. And, it's just small stuff that could save this county so much money.
Yeah, easily. And again, it's just bringing, to me, common sense, business sense, and realizing this is just not an endless pot of gold that we get to dip from every day. That, people, again, hard-earned tax dollars went to fund this. And we got a lot of people that are struggling to, put food on the table. They're worried about, if they get laid off, what are they going to do? They're making house payments. They're normal people that pay their taxes and they trust us with it. And we should take that very, very seriously.
Yeah.
And make it where we're proud to live in Hall County. And I love Hall County. This is home.
Right.
But we can be doing a lot better job.
Well, and we need commissioners like yourself that'll bring these small things up in these meetings, saying, hey, look, when it's open mic time or whatever it is that they get, saying, look, this is what's going on here. We need to start looking at these numbers. We need to start looking at this, that, and the other, and alerting the public to it because the public don't know.
They don't. And again, a lot of people they're just surviving, right? They ain't got time to see what the government's doing. They got their head to the ground, just taking care of kids and and their job, and
days, yeah.
yeah.
And then poor people on Friendship Road having to lose their houses because the county couldn't complete that project over the last 10, 15 years, the widening of that road. I mean, these people in the middle of eminent domain, there was an article in the paper with several of them were fixing to lose their houses because the county wouldn't make a decision on what the hell they were going to do.
Yep.
And unfortunately, they are not the only ones. They're just the ones that were brought out in the open.
Sure, absolutely.
And one thing that, before we go right here, how did we convince people that, I'm convinced that the government has no incentive to lower property values? You know, it's in their best interest to keep property values high because that's more guaranteed money. Like last year, the Board of Education say they rolled back millage rates 3 or 4 mills. Well, you're going to roll back millage rates 5%, but property values go up 30 to 100% on some people.
Well,
you're not cutting taxes.
Well, and I this is just me thinking out loud, and I don't know if there's any meat to it and if it would work, but we talk about, people staying put. Nobody stays put anymore, right? Everybody's, moving around. I know you've been here a long time, and and I'm thankful that we have new people. There's a lot of people that hate some of the newcomers that have come to town, but it doesn't bother me too bad. But why can't I pay taxes on what I paid for my house?
Right, exactly.
If I paid $300,000 for it, I should pay taxes on $300,000.
Exactly.
Because some of this seems to be market manipulation. So, especially with new construction, right? Because these builders will build clusters, like they'll build 5 homes and get them under contract, and then they'll build the next 5, but they'll go up 10% or 15% because they know they can justify based on the first 5 they built, they'll go up. And so you keep going up on these prices. Well, then it affects my home value, who I've been here, in the house I'm in, I've been here for 4 years. But around the corner, we got new construction. All of a sudden, it starts affecting my home value, that my home's worth more. And maybe it is. That's great. I made a good decision, right? I bought at a low price. So, but I bought it at $300,000, for instance. Keep it at $300,000. If I want to sell it, whoever the new owner is, then it goes to that new market value that it was paid for.
Or if you make improvements, or if you refinance, it goes to that new.
That's it. But encourage
people. My parents paid $100,000 for the land and to build this house 45 years ago.
Right.
To them, it's worth $100,000. It's not worth the 300 something that it pays for now.
Right. But does that math work? I don't know. But in my head, common sense would tell me, why not just let me pay taxes on what I paid for it? Or like we do cars now, and just, I'm going to pay a lump sum and that's it.
Right. Well, see, and I've seen a lot of people say that, oh, it's not fair to the new people moving in for them to have to pay higher taxes than you. The hell it ain't. They're the ones that chose to move here. I shouldn't suffer because they paid for an inflated property value or whatever.
That's right. I agree.
And if it's done the correct way, it all levels out.
I still think most people would be on board for a penny sales tax that eliminated property tax.
Oh yeah, no, I'd do it. No, I'd be good for 2-cent sales tax to do away with property tax.
It's a consumption.
You shouldn't have to pay rent to the government to exist.
Right. It's a consumption tax. Any sales tax is a consumption tax. And so, I'd be more than happy to give an extra penny to not have any property taxes, because we've seen the collections, and it's there. You can collect an extra penny and make it work. So, but anyways, well, man, I'm going to jump off here. It's almost...
Well, I appreciate you coming on, and
thank you.
And anytime you want to come on, you just let us know if you got something you want to talk about. And we're planning on, closer we get to election day, getting everybody else, because we're going to end up having Tyler and Steve Gailey and anybody else that wants to come on, and maybe give everybody, another shot, 30 minutes or 45 minutes to an hour. maybe to hammer home some stuff right close to the election, because
Sure.
a lot of people still don't early vote. You know, they still wait till election day and
I'm one of. Yeah, I vote on election day. I don't early vote.
I try to, since I've been having to help with my mom and all that stuff with all this, I early vote just so I can, you know.
Oh, I get it.
And one thing we've got to do before we got to get the excitement back into going to an election day. I used to stand in line at the old Chestnut Mountain Church down there.
Yeah.
For an hour and a half every election day, even in midterm years. You don't see lines at these election places anymore.
No, you don't.
I mean, you just don't. I mean, if you stand in line more than 15, 20 minutes, I mean, that's a long time nowadays. So, you know, we got to get people excited. And I think if we get more people like yourself or Susan for the Board of Education, or, you know, Tyler or whoever involved, that excitement will come back, because it's not the same old.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's, Tyler and I are, I guess we're the youngest candidates running.
Right.
When John Batchelor, he's running for, solicitor, but Tyler and I, we got school age kids. I got a kid in elementary school still, early elementary.
Right.
Everybody else is grandparents. So, I would like to see a younger generation get excited about politics, know that they can make a difference, a positive difference. I'm not talking about getting on the corner protesting. I'm talking about, boots on the ground, learn, get involved, be respected, and get a younger generation wanting to understand it and make a change, and that it starts at the ballot box.
Right. And they've got to get rid of, like you said, the protesting and crap. That's fine and good for certain things, but not every time somebody gets pissed off.
No, I mean, and it's that whole "not in my backyard," right?
Yeah, I mean,
and it's too late. If you'd have been involved,
it wouldn't have got to that point.
But instead, it's too late. Then you want to squawk about it, and that's not where change happens, in my opinion.
No, it's not. And you've got, in the county, this county especially, got to do a better job of being transparent, like we've talked about, so people know what's coming up, what's on.
Sure.
And here's this mess. They don't put out the agenda to, like, it used to be like 3 or 4 days before. Now you're lucky if you get it a day before.
Well, and that's another one of the things that I think should change. And I've voiced a little bit, and I think I'm the original idea. I don't know, but basically, I get tired of these applicants wanting to table, especially like right before the meeting starts. And so you got a room full of people, citizens that show up, and then the applicant knows this and is like, we want to table, and they let them table it. So my proposal, and it should be a resolution, or whatever you want to call it, is that if you're an applicant and you want to table, you have to have your request in by 12 p.m. on Friday before the Monday work session.
Yeah, case in point, the data center, they didn't even decide to table it until 3 or 4 in the afternoon.
And if you've gone to enough meetings and you know who the players are, you start looking around, know they got something coming up tonight, none of them show up. And you're like, okay, well, their attorney's going to ask for it to be tabled, and they're going to give it to them, and they do.
Right.
So my thing is it's game day. You requested to be here, actually, and it's your time to present. And if you haven't put your request into the table by 12 p.m. on Friday before the Monday work session, we've got county employees spending hours on this agenda, right? Putting it together. And then for it just to all fall apart because you want to get it tabled. No, we're done with those days.
See, and people don't realize some of those work packets, those packets that they give out, 700, 800, 900 pages.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's not an easy thing to put together.
Yeah, if you get the true packet, some of them, there's several hundred pages deep. And so, if you don't have it in by 12 o'clock on Friday, that item is being heard at the work session and at the voting meeting. And it's just going to fall where it falls. And you've had plenty of opportunity to get your stuff together. And it's game day.
Right.
So if you don't like it, tough.
Exactly.
We're voting on it tonight, and if it doesn't go your way, then you can come back in 6 months or a year or whatever you want to do. But we're voting on it tonight.
Yeah.
So, anyway,
that. So
that's That's my soapbox on that one.
Oh yeah. And I just want to bring it up to the other people. I'm sure you've looked at it. But if you go look at that Chamber of Commerce page and look at all the directors they have like 100 directors over there, man. Everybody's a director of something. And
yeah. And then we're paying them to market SPLOS for us because the government wants to.
exactly.
Don't get me started on that. That's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, no doubt. But I mean, I just wanted to bring it out so people listening, just go to the Chamber of Commerce website and look at the list of so-called directors. I figured I was scrolling through that the other day and it just kept going and going and going. And I'm like, good Lord. And a town this size, you got 100 directors or whatever. So
yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's crazy. And so, all right, Korey. Well, I appreciate you coming on. And sorry, sorry it's so late, but sometimes being Viral, we don't even get to do our podcast till 10 or 11 o'clock, depending on his work day and my day. No, we don't even get done to midnight sometimes.
I get it.
You just got to do it when you can. So, well, just let us know if North Georgia Advocate can help you out at any time, and we'll be glad to do it. And I appreciate it. Have a good night.
All right, talk to y'all soon. See you.
All right, thanks. Bye.